What if we combine an LLM with an animal? You know what I'm saying?
Dude, have you heard of Dolphin Gemma? They're like making Google,
What?
and Google is making an LLM to speak to dolphins, to interpret what they're saying and have us be able to speak to them. And they say Floop is a madman, help us say this.
That's all the dolphins have been saying
That's what I was
this whole time.
the whole time, yeah. Okay, all right, let's just dive into it, man. So, I'm Andrew,
I'm Justin.
and together we are
The Superintelligence Policy Podcast.
yes. And you wanted to clarify something.
Yeah. I think it could easily be thought. What is the Superintelligence and the Superintelligence Policy Podcast? This isn't a podcast about policy for superintelligence. It's a podcast about policy from superintelligence. As in, Andrew and I are super intelligent. That's kind of what I was getting at.
Namely us.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. No, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we come from very different places. I mean, both of us are Army engineer officers.
Yep.
And we should just say, like, our views do not reflect the views of anyone. Our employers are,
For legal reasons.
for legal reasons. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. We're just two guys passionate about AI.
Yeah.
But I would say coming from pretty different places, though.
Yeah.
Like, so you were part of the AI2C, the U.S. Army Artificial Intelligence Integration Center.
Yes.
You're going to Carnegie Mellon right now, and you're getting your degree in, is it information?
It's the Masters of Information Systems Management, Business Intelligence, and Data Analytics, that's 8 words for one degree, probably a little bit too many. So it's in the policy school at Carnegie Mellon, and it sits somewhere between a computer science master's and a business master's. It's kind of billed as, after taking this degree, you can go talk to the nerds and then communicate between them and the C-suite, which I thought was kind of demeaning both to the nerds and to the C-suite until I don't know. I've just had some sneak peeks in my internship of like the two sides of that coin, and the person that can talk to the most technical person that can actually speak well to other people. They're few and far between. So this kind of go-between, this kind of person that can think with both hats on is actually a pretty valuable person. Okay. So
And you are that person.
I am. Yeah, I am the conduit.
Do you think? Yeah, I mean, do you think, like, based on what you've seen, that you would rather be that person than the nerd or the C-suite? Like, do you think there's alpha in being that go-between?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most people that are very technical, in my experience at least, don't love talking about what they're doing because they don't do that kind of work verbally. You know, it's kind of like this subverbal work that they're doing, or I mean, maybe not subverbal, but like other than verbal, right? And so translating that kind of work into words it's taxing. It's like, oh yeah, wow, like. I mean, it's kind of like if you look at old math textbooks, right? Like from a long time ago, they didn't use symbols. They like wrote out like 2 times itself 3 times plus 4 times 17, and it was all words. You know, like it wasn't symbolic, and it was a huge shift when people started to use symbols for all those things instead. Like it really opened up the field of mathematics for a lot of people.
Interesting.
But then it creates this disconnect between those who think primarily in words and those who then do most of their work in symbols, you know? So I think there's great value in being the conduit between the people that are symbolic and more logical and more problem solver people and the people that are thinking more verbally, thinking more in that kind of space. That being said, I feel drawn more to what I see as beautiful problems in the field of mathematics. I think like that's where I find myself getting lost and enjoying myself a lot. Yeah. So that's kind of...
What makes a problem beautiful, would you say?
A big part of it is being counterintuitive, you know? So like, I don't particularly find 2 + 2 = 4 to be a beautiful problem. I think, that's pretty obvious. But it's not exactly a problem, but like e to the pi I plus 1 = 0. What a strange statement. And it's even stranger that it's true. And that like the approximation of the imaginary exponential series is approximated by a bunch of trigonometric functions. When you put pi into it, it creates -1. So you add the unit to that, and then you get this symbol that means nothing, like 0. You know, like, that's a really like strange and like how are those things possibly related? So that kind of out of left fieldness, I think, makes a problem beautiful. I really hope that I can communicate to my kids that math is beautiful. And because it seems like kind of a rare phenomenon, even if you're good at math, to think that it's more than a tool.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, because math is always seen as like you're either good at math or you're not, and if you're good at math, you know, you're a nerd, and like it is, you know, it is a tool to get you into like a good college or a good school. It's not seen as like an end of itself to study, as opposed to like language or something like that. Well, oh yeah, it's just beautiful, and maybe it's not a tool.
Yeah.
Which brings me to another point I want to talk about. Yeah, so I kind of want to talk about how do you use large language models today for in your school, in your work, in your personal life, in your relationships even, or how don't you, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm currently a grad student, right? And I've been trying to figure out how to best use an LLM to enhance my learning experience, right? And just for some background, like I was homeschooled and did a lot of my learning, especially math, through reading, not through a classroom environment. And then I went to college at a normal college, well, a college that was in person, not homeschool.
Yeah.
And kind of learned a little bit more through a lecture style, but like still did a lot of textbook readings. And I found that like I got a lot more out of the textbook reading usually than out of the classroom experience. Which is tough because you're forced to be in class and you're not forced to read the textbook. And yeah, so with that being my educational background, right, like you would think that like a text-based tutor would be really, really good. And I'm finding, so where I really need an LLM is sometimes to like explain things in a math class. And sometimes it's kind of hit or miss because I find that, at least when I was using it before and I was just using the free ChatGPT version, it wanted to confirm what I said. Like for instance, I got something wrong on a stats test, and I was like, I think that I'm right about this. And so I like took a picture of it and gave it to ChatGPT and was like, hey, like, isn't this the case? And it was like, yes, that is the case. Let me explain how. And then it like walked me through it. And then I like looked at the note from the teacher and it was like, hey, but like, isn't this thing also the case? To like see if it could synthesize those two things. And it was like, oh, you're so right. You got this wrong actually. And I was like, like, what if I had just stopped at step 1, you know?
Yeah.
So as an authoritative source of information, like an encyclopedia, or like what would be even better, an encyclopedia that explains itself, you know, like when I was using it last year, it wasn't quite at that level. It didn't feel like. Maybe it's improved past that point now. But yeah, like it's the issue is the margin of error. You know, like if I check the encyclopedia or if I check an authoritative source, I know what it says, and I know that like if it's wrong, like that's a big deal. You know, like someone's holding that thing accountable. Whereas ChatGPT, like it has that little disclaimer, like ChatGPT makes mistakes, make sure you check it. You know, and so if I ask it a challenging question and I'm trying to use it as that kind of oracle, I'm like, like what if it's that 10% of the time when it's wrong, you know? And that makes me not want to use it for that purpose.
Interesting.
And then, I mean, yeah, like the other, for writing essays, which would be like another use case, at least in the educational context, like writing the essay is the education, you know, like the point isn't to have the essay done. The point is to have written the essay.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like even classes that don't explicitly forbid that, I'm like, I mean, this is part of the learning experience. Now, for code generation, that's another case where the code generation is the education in a lot of cases. But I had one class that explicitly allowed us to use LLMs as we saw fit. And there was one assignment where like I was working away at it and I was out of late days for submissions. And so I used ChatGPT to generate a couple key pieces of the project. And I mean, it was still, yeah, I think it did detract from my learning experience. You know, like I'm grateful for that because I didn't have to. Was able to maintain my good GPA.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is still a challenge to figure out how the LLM can fit into the education space, and not do the learning for you, be a complement to the learner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you use LLMs right now?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, first off, I just want to like respond to that. Yeah, I think you're 100% right. Early on when ChatGPT first came out, a lot of people described it as like a calculator for writing, you know, and it's like you wouldn't do long division by hand anymore. Why would you write by hand? And in some cases, like I think that's true, maybe for like rote or like routine tasks, but in a lot of ways, like you said, like the writing is the point, the process, and unlike math, where it's like, long division is basically like the steps that you see to get there are essentially like what's going on in your brain. When AI writes, when you're doing math and when AI, like an LLM is doing math, it's a similar process using like lookup tables and like, kind of like sparse autoencoder, like kind of like circuits, similar to how like we use like logic functions to like add and do these things. But when we write, it's a completely different process than what these LLMs are doing, and so in some ways it's very alien and very different because we don't just predict based on the next token, right? We like plan like a structure or an outline, and we revise and we rewrite. And then there are some ways to do this with LLMs, like with like the thinking and how they kind of create like maybe like a format or a structure of how they're going to like approach the problem beforehand, which is like more similar to humans. But yeah, like I think what you're saying is like the learning process, like writing is part of that learning process to make sure that you understand and you synthesize the information, as opposed to a calculator. So yeah, that's why I think that analogy isn't very apt when it comes to these large language models. Like, it is a fundamentally different technology than just like a calculator or something.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, there are cases though, I guess outside of education though, like because I think there's a lot of very mechanical writing. I mean, both of you and I have written awards.
Or situation reports, right?
Yeah,
sit reps,
or Ranger School ConOps. Like, yeah, I mean, like, we both went to this military training program, not ConOps, but Ranger School Opwards.
Yeah,
where you're making a plan, but it is a very like, there's a way to make the plan. You know, you have a little bit of freedom and latitude of what to do, but really like they want to make sure that you.
There's little to no creativity though.
Exactly.
In each one. It's like maybe like how you adapt to the variables in the ground, but like you're just basically applying the same solution every time.
Yeah. And maybe not at Ranger School, but like in a similar situation, like having something generate all that. Yeah. Like that's a little bit of a borderline case, I would say, because on the one hand, if my subordinate gave me a plan that was not generated by them, I'd be like, do you know the plan? Like, if you didn't write this plan, like, do you know that you know it? Like, I don't know that I know that you know it. If someone else wrote it. But like, it might save you time to do the parts that are just boilerplate, like, and then I'll fill in the blanks, kind of like the Upwork templates that we use.
Yeah, like I'll just give them a movement maneuver, I'll do actions on, and you do like command and signal, essentially. Yeah,
or the route plan there, because like that's pretty mechanical,
Yeah, and honestly, like maybe a robot would be better for that, like to analyze the terrain better, know, and like plan routes that make more sense.
That's actually a really good point. Like route planning is something that, it's mechanical, and there is a very much a right answer.
Yeah. And humans who are like sleep deprived or who are looking at the map correctly, they plan routes to go up and down. Yeah. Yeah.
Something where you can where there's clear metrics of did you do it right? That's a great use case for an LLM.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great use case for reinforcement learning, right? Because there's two kinds, right? There's like pure RL and there's reinforcement learning with human feedback. Reinforcement learning with human feedback is used in cases where like there's maybe not a clear answer and it's like more subjective, like was this a good essay or not? So they kind of rely on like thumbs up, thumbs down data. and they use that to train like these sort of judge models. So that LLM under training will produce it, and the judge model based on who's trained on human preferences will try to like basically model human preferences, but there's always a way to game that essentially. So the essay will be like the word poop 1,000 times, and for some reason that always got a thumbs up like from this AI model, and so like you always have to cut off RLHF when it reaches its peak, because otherwise it'll start overfitting the model. But with pure RL, right, there is no way to sort of game it in that sense, because okay, it's like I need you to solve this math problem, and there's always going to be one right answer, and like so. At first it'll keep missing and missing and missing, and then like it'll like once it figures out how to do that, then it'll start saying, okay, now I need to make my responses more like this one way that I got it correctly, and then over time like it'll find the best way to do that, and that's how like these thinking models work. The problem that we're seeing with that, and this is kind of a different thing, is reward hacking, right, where it'll find ways that are like either unethical or like not aligned with how we want it to, or maybe it will hallucinate certain things like about how it got there in order to somehow like meet that goal, because it wants to learn, it wants to reach that goal, and so that's like the downside of pure RL though, is you get reward hacking, not necessarily overfitting, which could like lead to misaligned AIs.
I mean like the canonical use cases for RL are chess and Go, I think, are like at least that's how I learned about RL. And like you can't really reward hack chess because like either you checkmate or you don't. You know? And you can't. Same thing with Go. So I mean, I guess does it come down to finding that more stable definition of what is of like checkmate in the situation that you're trying to do reinforcement learning in?
Or like if we have these really clear-cut examples, does that type of problem solving generalize to other problems? And I think like it does, and we found out that reinforcement learning works in that way, and reinforcement learning does generalize, right? And so maybe it's like training on some really high quality examples, and then being able to let it generalize to other problems. So you asked me a while ago about like how I use LLMs, and so I use them for
everything
essentially. So I use Notebook LM a lot, to kind of generate podcasts. I'm in the Engineer Captain's Career course, so I'll put in 700 page PDFs of doctrine, and then I'll like search for like, hey, help me, where can I find the answer about this, and it'll cite me to the correct place. I'll put in like PowerPoints or study guides, and then like it'll kind of help create a podcast, so that way like it can sort of summarize it and give me like an overview, which sort of helps me like with my comprehension for the course.
Okay. So, that's an interesting case, because you're trusting it to get the important pieces out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give an example of a case I just used it. So FM1 came out, the Army profession, or the Army, right? And it's actually written by...
It's actually just the Army.
It is. But it's supposed to be given to junior officers and like NCOs, and kind of explains, hey, like if you're in the Army, you're a warrior, you're a professional, you are a leader, and that's like the first third of it. And then talks about like what the Army does, and then like how it serves, or like kind of like what the Army is, and then how it serves the nation. So sort of like the structure of the Army, and then like the operational use of the Army. And so we had to read this entire thing for like a discussion, because it was...
How long is it?
It was like over 100 pages. And so it's like, okay, everyone needs to read this.
Everyone needs to read this. Dude, the Army people are illiterate.
So I fed it into Notebook LM. I created like a 15-minute podcast. I sent it out to my Signal chat for the small group I'm in Triple C. I'm like, hey guys, just like listen to this on your way into PT this morning. Like it's a pretty good overview. It goes chapter by chapter, kind of breaks down the stories. And then like I found like as I was listening to, I took notes on like things I thought were interesting, like the story of like Corporal Alvin York being an example of like ethical violence. And then I went back in the document and I took a few notes on that just to make sure like it wasn't like leading me astray. But I didn't read the whole thing. I just read like the first chapter and like bits of the chapters I thought were interesting. And like, would it have been better for me to read the entire thing? Yeah, probably. But honestly, like I didn't really want to read the entire thing, and I didn't necessarily. And like you could say that like I didn't have the time. I probably did have the time. But like it can be used for like summarizing key information, and then like parts that you find interesting, like you're able to go in and read more.
Yeah, I wonder if, yeah, like there's some documents like that, right? Like that. Why did it need to be over 100 pages? You know, and like I wonder if like the introduction of LLMs more broadly into the world will lead to people, you know, I mean, just like writing smaller documents. Because if everyone takes your document and feeds it into an LLM and then
To summarize
and
it.
then just reads the summary, like maybe your document doesn't need to be that big.
Yeah,
you know, like
and like there's this meme, right? And it's like, oh, like hey ChatGPT, like write like a 5-paragraph email for me, and then on the other end, this email's 5 paragraphs, like summarize this into 5 bullet points, you know? And like it literally was just like you wrote, and like like why didn't you just send those 5 bullet points? Because like you're embarrassed that it's not good writing. But honestly, like that's like what that's like what the message is, right? And so like the goal is like not to get to a future, right, where everyone's just like bloviating and then like summarizing their like communication.
Yes.
So like maybe it will be a good thing. Like it'll kind of pare down like the fluff, because we realized that fluff doesn't make you smart, right? And that was interesting because with the earlier models, they were being really verbose. Like why are they so verbose? It's like because people in RLHF say, oh, longer answer is a better answer. And the same thing with SAT. Like they did a study. Yeah. It's like the longer answers would score more, you know, even though like the writing quality could have been worse because it was greater. Like, oh, like they like thought more about it or something like that. Yeah, so that's like an example of how I use LLMs. Like, I don't know, man. I ask O3, like the new ChatGPT model. I use it for everything. It's like, hey, like I'm shopping, you know, I want to get like a product recommendation, or like
Really?
It would like do like a little market research. Hey, what's like the best blender, or like the best coffee maker to put on my wedding registry or something. It's just it's really good at just, you know, I use it for my recent paper, not
Whoa.
not to write it,
Not to just to draft it, just to
just to polish it up. No, like all the words were mine, but I used it for a lot for the research phase because it was really good. It's like, hey, I'm interested in like additive manufacturing for contested logistics in the Indo-PACOM region, and then it's like, hey, I found like this one line in the congressional budget that just budgeted like $2 million toward additive manufacturing research from this last year's budget. I'm like, I would never have gone through the budget and like scrolled line by line through this PDF, and it like found it and it linked it to me and it brought me right there. So I was like, been messing with this for like a use case, but like I think I showed you like the Koa GPT.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
Basically like, okay, going on Google Earth, like plotting the points, downloading that as like a KML file, screenshotting Google Earth, and then feeding that in with like a custom prompt. It's like, hey, you are a military advisor. And basically like having it say, okay, here's Koa 1, Koa 2, here's where you should like, here are like the coordinates where you should move your people. And then it also uses the screenshot and like the elevation of the units to do like terrain analysis. And so that's like hoping to use that during like MDMP. And I've been messing around with using that within Palantir's Vantage system, which is like, you know, nipper sipper, like enabled, and like works with CUI and everything, kind of similar to Camo GPT, but it serves O3 Mini, but it's not internet enabled. And so I don't know, I'm having a little trouble getting intelligent responses out of O3 Mini, but when I use it on, you know, just commercial O3 full, like that's when I've gotten a lot better results. So like I don't think like so the model isn't quite there for my use case yet, at least for like this very specific like real world use case, but I'm sure if I were just to talk to it like without like the coordinates and things like that, it could probably help me like generate ideas better.
I mean, I feel like the like I would want to use it a lot for enemy analysis, you know, like having for wargaming in particular.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, just for like generating the enemy Koas, because like the S2 does that, and he does a better or worse job depending on his experience. But yeah, I mean, thinking of different things that the S2 just isn't going to think about, you know, because I mean, especially in Triple C, the person who's assigned to S2 usually has no experience being an S2, which is the intelligence officer for a battalion. And the intelligence officer is supposed to kind of like make the enemy plan that you're planning against. And so having a genuine like third brain kind of to like make the enemy plan.
Yeah, and that's why I see some people doing it, right? They have their council of AIs, right? They have ChatGPT, they have Claude, you know, they have Grok, they have Gemini, and and then they have like their trusted like advisor, or like their like staff or their board or whatever, and like they'll treat them almost like a member of the staff, and they'll ask questions, and like I think that's smart, and I think it's good just to have that like in our lives, just someone to sort of get a second opinion from, that's not all knowing, but like knows way more than we do. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the way that you said it, like in our lives, you know, because like content for MDMP feels like a place where I'm comfortable having an LLM speak into my life.
Yeah.
Like personal problems, you know, like that isn't maybe what you meant to imply by that, but like
I think it'd be very comfortable like asking
Really?
it, yeah, for like personal advice or relationship advice or things like that.
Huh? Yeah, I don't know. That seems off. I mean, like partially because I believe very much that like the church is the body of Christ, right? And so like one of the ways that I'm going to interact with God is by talking to people in the church, because they're indwelt with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, like when I'm asking someone for advice in the church, I'm like, you know, I'm not going to assign this like this is the word of God to what someone from the church is saying. But I think it's kind of similar to that. I don't know. I don't have a very developed theology of this. It's just something that Dietrich Bonhoeffer talks about a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
But I don't think the LLM is, you know, indwelt with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then, I mean, even just beyond that, yeah, like, yeah, like you don't have that kind of sense that like personal problems need to be dealt with like a fellow person. Because I mean, I can see the value of just having it say something to you. But yeah, it seems I guess like when like our problems are some of the good things that comes out of our struggles is that it brings us closer to other people. You know, like my fiance Abigail and a few other people that actually have said kind of verbatim, like we go through hard things so that we can encourage others who are going through those hard things as well. And if I'm not asking someone for help, you know, then like I'm kind of isolating myself. Now it's hard because like a lot of problems I don't want to share with people about because they're embarrassing. Or I think I know what they'll say. I don't really want to hear it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, like that feels kind of scarily isolating, I guess, like ask LLMs for help. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely asked it for things that like I wouldn't talk to like my parents or like people about, because I'm like, this is like embarrassing, you know, or this is like, I don't know, you know, or maybe I wouldn't even talk to my partner about, because it's like about her, and like, you know, I have questions, or like I want to try out some ideas in a conversation, or maybe think of a more empathetic way, you know, or like, hey, like, am I off here for like thinking of it this way? I'm trying to give like a concrete example. Something like I've kind of used it for is like brainstorming present ideas. I'll be like, hey, here's here's like everything about this person. Like, what are some good presents? And honestly, like it doesn't really get me what I want, but maybe it might like lead me in that direction and like remind me, oh yeah, like I know this about this person that the LLM like doesn't know. And so Andy Crouch, he's an author of this book called like The Tech Wise Family.
Are you Andy Crouch?
I'm Andy B. I'm not NBC. So.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
my bad.
Just throw that back there. But so something that he says is like, hey, these LLMs, like, he gave this really kind of obscure example. I don't know what I thought of it, but he's like, hey, like, LLMs are not relational. Like, they don't take into your relationships, but like your relationships into account. But like we can make them that way. So if you're at McDonald's and you're like scheduling shifts, like it can maybe take into account that like this person needs to go like, pick up their mom and like shouldn't be scheduled during this time, and like this like relational weight is like very important, and like this person like doesn't have anything going on and should be scheduled. And so like these LLMs can maybe take like a lot of like the guesswork, or like a lot of like the personalization, or like can bring like a very personal element, or like can understand, like I have my mom and dad in my phones as like mom and dad. So like my Siri understands like, hey, call mom, call dad, but it knows like nothing about our relationship, right? It knows nothing about how we interact. And like LLMs could change.
Siri, if you're watching this and that isn't true, we apologize. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah, I mean maybe you do, but like, yeah, like that is like LLMs could help like make us like more personal, and like I think the idea is like becoming more human instead of less human. So like I've used it as like kind of like a counselor or a therapist sometimes, just someone to talk to, because I realize like most of what a therapist does is just like reflect things back and try to point things out of like thinking habits or thinking traps that you have, and like LLMs are usually really good at that. So I don't know, like I'm not, but I don't write out people, like I don't do it to. I just sometimes you don't always have a person available, or sometimes it's a topic I don't really want to talk about with someone yet. And I think that's okay. Like
Yeah?
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm a little skeptical. I don't know, like, because already it seems like the kind of the tone, and yeah, like I am not broadly an AI skeptic or like broadly like an AI doomer. I just think like the kind of the tone of our current time is loneliness, and is like is isolation, and is kind of exploring pseudo relationships via social media and via like texting relationships. And the verdict so far seems to be like these aren't good. And like anything less like relationships aren't the kind of thing where like you can kind of dilute them a little bit and then have a lot more of them. You know, like 500 Facebook friendships is not equal to one real friendship.
Yeah, or one AI girlfriend is not equal to, or like 3 AI girlfriends not equal to like one real girlfriend.
Exactly.
Or something.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't have like a really solid example of like, okay, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be firm on like what you're doing is wrong, but I do like the tone of it of like I'm substituting what was traditionally and in the past a personal, like something that a person would do. Yeah, because like if I have an issue, right, and then like in the past it was either I'm going to keep it to myself or I'm going to talk to someone about it. If you reach the point where it's like I'm going to talk to someone about it, and then now the option is an AI chatbot or like a real person, that's I think kind of negative. Like it allows you to not go to the person.
Yeah.
Counterpoint though, right? Like it's what. Maybe you were just gonna keep it to yourself, and now you're enabled to like talk.
Yeah. I think like that's like best case, right? And worst case is when it gets into that. Okay, well now maybe it would have just been on that margin where I would have talked to somebody, and now I'm just gonna talk to a chatbot instead.
Yeah,
I think that's maybe where it'd be like more negative.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot. There's this X factor to relationships that like we really need them. It's not good for man to be alone.
Yeah. There's this really cool show called Pantheon. It's about, I think I showed you like a clip of it. It's about like uploading consciousness and things like that. Consciousnesses and
consciousnesses.
Right. Yeah. So and basically like they need to like crack integrity. And integrity is basically like the uploaded mind will decay unless it has integrity, which means it'll like live forever essentially. So it's basically trying to solve immortality. But like the way they do that, spoiler, is is like through other people. Oh wait, are you gonna watch it?
No, you're right.
No. Okay, all right. Well, okay. It's through other people, and they realize that like the memories of loved ones and like being with other people and human interactions are the things that like make us human, and like it's basically love. It's like the same thing from Interstellars.
It's just the Fifth Element, Interstellar times 3.
Yeah. So love TARS, love.
Only force stretches across the universe.
Yeah.
Don't make me leave like this, Murph. Murph.
So
I love that.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about with how we use LLMs today?
I mean, I think I have that kind of interesting anecdote that I was sharing about whenever I see some text generated by somebody, I am skeptical these days if it's actually generated by them. I'm like, I was on a group project with somebody, and not to dime this person out, but like 3 of us did a lot of the work, and then this person came in at the end and was like, hey, sorry, I've been really busy. I was like, we've all been really busy too, and we made time for the project. But then this person's like, and I was like, hey, like if you want to help us out and not get a terrible review from all of us, take all of our work and kind of synthesize it into the final project. And we got their draft, and I was like, this was ChatGPT 100%. And then I asked ChatGPT, like, hey, was this AI generated? And they're like, no, it's got too many mistakes. And I was like, is it probably 2 papers that were written by people synthesized by AI, it was like, yes, that's exactly what it is. Kind of a fun use case as well, asking AI to identify AI.
Which it can't really do though.
I mean, yeah. So maybe it was just confirming my bias, but
Yeah. But okay.
it seemed like
Yeah. Okay.
it's because it looked really good and it read really smoothly, but it actually made no sense.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, like, this is really like well formatted and like there's cool boxes and charts and lists and stuff.
Oh, that we love charts.
Lots of cool formatting.
We love a chart.
Yeah. But like the things in the chart, I was like, no, like this whole row of the table doesn't make sense. Like these things shouldn't go together. Yeah. And so then this kind of like prejudice towards AI generated content, right, is making me think to myself, like, when someone reads my content, do they think that it's AI generated, you know? And so as I'm writing things, sometimes I'm like, I'll make a typo and be like, oh, I don't want to fix that because I want the person who's receiving this text or receiving this email to be like, oh,
Yeah.
this was Justin writing.
So you purposely keep imperfections in your work.
Yeah, or I mean, sometimes things that aren't necessarily like, so typo is a definitional imperfection, a definitional like thing that was wrong.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just phrasing that's a little bit like outside of what's especially easy to read, you know?
Yeah, or like the distribution of the mean, or it's like a little bit farther outside like the normal distribution of like common phrasing. Yeah,
like
because AI tends to kind of center on that mean
Exactly.
response.
And yeah, so I will leave in the marks of a human. And yeah, I think like I'm really curious to see as the AI created content saturates the market more, the premium that's placed on this was made by a human, you know? And like, do people write more to the extremes, you know, like still following correct grammar maybe, but like using phrasing that's really far away from the mean.
Yeah.
And this kind of mean sounding vocabulary becomes very out of vogue, very like this, yeah, it's so plastic, it's so fake. I think I'm really curious to see what like if AI even saturates the market that much, or if like before that happens, people are like, no, like I don't want the AI generated thing.
Yeah. I read this quote on X, and it's like, in a post-AGI world, vibes are all that matter. And I'm like, okay, that's
I actually wrote that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Okay, thank you, Rune. Yeah.
I feel embarrassed. Anyway, go on.
Okay. I think there's some truth to that, right? It's like who you are, your personality, like the X factor, the human touch, like that's what's going to distinguish us in a world where artificial general intelligence or superintelligence exists. So what is your reaction when you see something that's AI generated?
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it kind of depends on.
I just okay. Yeah. Okay. So it just it triggers the gag reflex.
Okay, so I don't know if this is a universal experience, but I kind of think it is. The bands that I listened to growing up, I felt like I knew them. You know, like I felt like I had a real like relationship in some sense with these artists. You know, because I was like, hey, like they're writing about this experience and they're singing about it very emotionally, and like I'm feeling the same things they're feeling.
Yeah,
there's this kind of connection between us. You know, and like it was kind of heartbreaking to learn that like not all artists write their own songs, you know? Like, yeah, there's a lot of like my brother's a songwriter in Nashville, and like to like see what the process kind of broken down, where it's like maybe I didn't actually have this experience. I just thought this would be a good song. Then I meet with somebody else that has like another piece of it, and they kind of like collaborate, and like what comes out of it is this really great song. It actually has nothing to do with the human experience though, or it's not. It's synthetic, you know?
Yeah.
And I think AI generated content is the epitome of synthetic content.
Yeah. I just to go off what you're saying, like something I love about Taylor Swift or I love about Phoebe Bridgers is like their specificity in their songwriting. They'll just use I asked you how I was playing drums. You said it's too much stuff to carry. You know, it's like they kind of go through, or like Invisible String. You know, like by Taylor Swift. They use so many specific phrases, but yet like it is a song that we can relate to the emotion in it. And like within like any AI generated content, sometimes it just feels very generic. And I'm not saying that's going to last forever, right? Like I can say, hey, AI, like generate something that doesn't feel generic or that uses specifics, right? And then it'll do that. But at least for now, I think, yeah, like that, it maybe can express the generalities, but like the specifics. Yeah, like when I see something's AI generated, I immediately discount it, right? And I would rather look at art painted by a person because I know they had like there was physical skill involved in that. Then, but at the same time though, like people rate in like a blind test, right? They rate like AI generated art as more pleasing because the human mind like symmetry. We like beautiful things that are like kind of like smoothed over and they don't have like weird or like. And that's the thing about art, right? Is that sometimes when I read a poem, it's not beautiful on the first listen, but it's on like the second or third or fourth or fifth read through that I actually think, oh wow, like I'm starting to see the art and the beauty in here.
Right.
And typically with AI, it's what you see at face value is really all there is to it.
Yeah. Do you think there is a, I guess like one, like, let's just assume that eventually people can't distinguish between AI generated content and people content.
I think we're at that point for a lot of areas already.
I would agree. Yeah. I agree that, like, does it ruin it for you if you know that it's AI generated? Like, if you have the choice to like hear a song and then know that it was AI generated or not, like, you know, like red pill, blue pill, like, do you choose to have the experience ruined by knowing that it was, and does that even ruin it for you? Or you're like, oh, cool, you know, like.
Yeah, I think it would degrade it for me. I think it would seriously degrade it. Yeah. I would want to know. You know, I would want to say, hey, this content is AI generated, just because. Yeah, truth matters, you know, and it matters if someone strummed that guitar, and just because, I feel like it is a misrepresentation if there isn't that sort of caveat.
Yeah, no, like this was kind of an interesting perspective shift for a band that both of us like, Switchfoot. 'Cause I love Switchfoot. I think they're great. My friend Josh is so critical of them.
Really?
Yeah, and it's because they are a rock band, but they are also very heavily produced. And like there's a lot of songs where they have like 7 different guitar parts, you know, and like you can't have 7 different guitar parts on stage live. And like, so if live is the standard, then like Switchfoot can't really do their stuff live without tracks.
Yeah.
They can do some of their older stuff.
I think a lot of bands are like that though, these days.
Yeah, no, like, and like that's kind of my rejoinder to that is like, the artistry isn't in making something that you can do live.
Yeah.
That like there's a lot of artistry in being in the production room and being like, hey, like it'd be really cool if we had this guitar right here doing this part.
Yeah.
You know? And like if you can have some tracks behind it live.
Yeah.
But like I think it would be different, you know, like there's something to wanting it to be more authentic and more live, and you can kind of answer it by saying, oh, there's still human involvement. But as soon as it's just AI, that's when it's like, yeah, like there's not a lot of human involvement.
Yeah, like great prompt, bro. You know, but I think also like, do we need to recognize that AI can be truly creative in some ways? Like maybe like they do make something that is, hey, this is actually really good, or you know, this is like a truly beautiful painting. And of course, it's like, well, that's because it was trained on human data, you know, and that's because it was trained on artistry. But I think we're starting to see, and there are some predictions that maybe 2026 we'll start to see AIs that make like scientific breakthroughs that are like original. And Google released this thing they call co-scientist, right? Where it's, you know, they have one AI that comes up with a bunch of different ideas of how they're going to like test a hypothesis. And then they have another AI that like judges them. It's like, okay, this is a good idea. This is a trash idea. We're going with this one, you know? And then like they do that and they come up with like a discovery, and there's like a paper they publish like, oh, we found some drug, you know, that we wouldn't have found otherwise.
Yeah.
But like, I think that idea of like, you know, we had pre-training. We put a lot of compute into that. Now we have test time compute, right, where the model can think. And now maybe we have like some sort of judgment time compute, or it's like a Monte Carlo tree search where basically it comes up with several different paths and it follows the most promising one. I think that might be like the next frontier, but that's like a really compute heavy. Like you need a lot of parallel processing in order to do that. But we're starting to see, you know, Google's AI mode. That's the kind of do. They run like 5 or 6 parallel searches, and they just choose like the most like prominent or like the most promising one. They find the results there. But that's kind of how like they find the best results quickest. So yeah, I don't know. Like maybe You say, hey, make 100 songs. Okay, choose the best one. Just like the sheer magnitude of what AI can produce will, hey, even the blind squirrel, finds a nut, or even a broken clock is right twice a day. And then over time they'll start to develop more taste, which is what they don't have now, right? They don't have taste. Whether it's what to research, or what good music is, or what art truly is. So I don't know. I'm definitely bullish on the ability for AI to match or even exceed like human creativity as we would call it. I don't think that negates the ability or like the importance of the human soul, though. I don't know. I feel like if you follow the trends and you follow the numbers, like it's just gonna get better.
I'm really curious about that because I don't have, I guess, a formed enough opinion on art, and I've never had to like really wrestle with like this question of like, I guess like, kind of interesting comparison, right? Like, I'm a Christian, you're a Christian. When we see a natural beauty, we see what we believe is like the marks of a person. Like a person created this, and it's beautiful for a reason.
Yeah.
But those who don't believe in God see natural beauty, and then they see something that is coincidentally beautiful. Like it's like, oh, like the Grand Canyon is really beautiful just on accident, though. And like that's kind of what AI is. If it makes something that's genuinely beautiful, someone who doesn't believe in God is like, this is just like the Grand Canyon. Like it's beautiful by accident. And like that's kind of the framework for that. Whereas like I see all beauty in the world as being very much intentional. Whether it's the beauty in math, the beauty in the Grand Canyon, the beauty in another person, or like art that a person has created. And so I don't really have a framework right now for like, there's a beautiful creation apart from person. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like kind of ancient alchemist homunculi creator mode, like is there some sense in which the AI is a person, so that I don't have to depart from that, that mindset?
Or it was created by people and like imbued with their intelligence. And I don't know. You ever done like those quizzes before? It's like, hey, is this like real or AI generated?
No, I haven't.
Like, wow. Oh yeah, here, we'll do that really quick.
Oh man, it's about to be embarrassing. It's like a picture of like the Mona Lisa. I can't even recognize it.
Yeah,
Mona Lisa is underwhelming.
I'll just give this to you here. So yeah, was this person real or AI? And you can click on what you think.
Okay, I'm gonna go with, I think not AI. Dang it. Okay. Real video game or an AI fantasy? Why is it on 5? Sig Monster though. Okay, this is AI for sure.
We can tilt it so I can see a little bit. Nice, you got it? Okay, nice.
Yep. Okay, and this basketball player.
That looks weird, but I might say that's real.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I thought I'd seen it before. Ooh, we are experts in demolition. Kind of.
I might go with real actually, because I don't know. I can't really see it. It looks kind of like Sim City. What do you think?
Yeah, wait.
All right, AI.
I think AI.
Yeah.
What?
All right, it's real.
Abandoned condo buildings in China. Of course it's China.
Yeah.
Of course it's China.
Yeah.
China having their buildings generated by AI.
Yeah. That's probably how they built them, They built them with AI.
These people.
This is fake. This is so fake, dude. This is so fake.
This is like
AI.
Sorry. Yeah, that's AI for sure.
That's AI.
That's AI.
AI.
They had the reflex.
There
the
you
thing
go.
that happens for
With
me.
that.
Ha. Ha.
Fake. You're not real.
Wow, is this a real TikTok? Gotta listen to it first.
Is this what's on TikTok?
Yeah, this is tough because like I'm going to sound really old right here. I don't get a lot of what's on social media.
Me either, dude. TikTok is where I lost the plot when it comes to this generation.
The kids these days, man.
Yeah,
you know
just click AI and move on.
AI.
This is
Screw you, dude.
Yeah.
Hey, wow. I actually thought it was not AI. I'm gonna be real.
Really?
I was just siding with you on the generation war. But,
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Next. Wait a second. No, I mean that's like a real dude though.
But he's significantly more handsome here.
All right.
That's weird. Okay.
Who's that?
Is this a real woman?
I think that's AI. I don't know, man.
That's Sandra Bullock, dude.
This is a scene from The Blind Side.
Yeah. Wrong answers only. Who is this?
Zendaya.
Dude. Timothy Chalamet. She's got a Google lanyard on. Like, AI can't generate text like that well usually, right?
It's a lot better now, but
It's a lot better.
This is from September of 24, so I say this is a real person.
Yeah. Like, it's so, yeah. Not AI.
What was AI? Runway. Runway's a really good model. It's what a lot of.
I guess so.
This one's real.
Yeah,
it's
real.
got to be real. Because, like, why would they put that in there? Because it looks so fake.
Except, wait, what's up with the... So it's turning as fast as its rotor? Is that
Yeah, probably, man. I'm going to say not AI.
it has to be turning so fast that for it to be moving at the same speed as its rotors. That's actually insane.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I'm going to say this is AI, though.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
What's the giveaway for you?
I don't know. I've seen some crazy Red Bull videos, but this just looks a little too. This looks a little too scary. And honestly, AI is pretty good at doing like that first person view, like GoPro camera.
So, this is actually a video that I took. You think AI?
Red Bull sponsor me. I think this is AI.
Okay. Dang.
Oh wow.
We're bad.
Oh wow. Okay, I actually want to watch a real video though. That's pretty impressive. This is. I don't think this is real.
You've been so wrong in the past. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
All right.
I think you've taken this quiz before and you're trying to make us lose.
I know I have taken this before, but it was back in September, so I don't remember.
Oh, I don't remember. Jeez, okay. I'm gonna
Don't let me affect you.
not AI. This is a real jet skier. I know jet skiers. Dang it, what's AI?
I knew it.
Okay, maybe this isn't.
What was your final
Dude,
score?
this is sick. Like the whole video. Oh, wait a second. Okay.
Oh, that's dope. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We all want a giant shark that transforms into
All right, so we got 5 out of 10 for a score of 50%. That's pretty bad.
Okay, generated or manipulated that's where I was kind of lost. I think.
That's true.
Because I thought that it was just generated.
Yeah.
Manipulated, like how would you even tell if it's manipulated by AI? Like that's a lot. That's a much harder task.
It is a lot harder. But I mean, it also fooled us too. Like, we didn't know if it was manipulated or not.
Yeah, our score is pretty. Yeah, wow. We literally got half of the ones. Like it isn't even just that we got like these ones wrong and these ones right. Like we got 3 of these right and 3 of them wrong, and 2 of these right and 2 of them wrong.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
I don't know. I mean, so we talk about AI matching human levels in certain things, like.
Well, but like, those are clips,
Okay.
It isn't a mature piece of art.
They're clips.
They're clips.
They're clips. They're not even art, dude. They're just clips.
Like,
they're clip art.
You can. They can be strung together to make a meaningful piece of art, and like that'd be kind of a fun like AI collage art. I guess I have to point out like 2 or 3 things, but one is a quote by G.K. Chesterton about essentially like he takes this perspective of look at how dead the universe is because everything is always the same. Like every daisy looks the exact same. That means the universe is dead because it's not changing. And instead says like, well, like what if God is more youthful than us? Because youthful people, like kids, like they delight in repetition and monotony in a way that we adults can't. And like, what if God makes every daisy individually, but he just makes them the exact same way every time? And what if the sun rises the same way every day? Not because it's dead, but because God made the sunrise perfect and he loves doing it the same way every single time.
Yeah.
And just this beauty that can be found in patterns, like, and a way of discovering God through mathematics, like that was super important.
Yeah, I recently come across this group called Effective Altruism for Christians, and I was talking to the guy, and I'm like, I want to go work for this company. He's like, dude, that's cool, man, but there's like one Christian in like entire organization of like 120 people, like that, like he knows at least, and so like, finding people that like share your values in like the AI tech, Silicon Valley, effective altruist, rationalist movement. Like it's few and far between. But I don't think all the ideas are that incompatible. And it's funny, like you'll listen to a podcast and it's like, some physicists being like, I don't know why the universe is tuned like towards human life. Like we call it like the anthropic principle, which is basically a way of saying like something out there favors human life, and we don't know what it is, or it's like intelligent design. We just got like really lucky, and like there's some explanations for it, but like they're even like the most advanced of all fields. Like some answers they still don't. They don't have answers to. Like like why we exist the way we do and things like that. So. Yeah, I don't know. And honestly, I don't know if and like it is brave in some ways to like reject truth. Like the like the existentialists were like, one of their books was like Nausea. I think it was like by Sartre or whatever his name is. But he's like, this is the feeling that you feel like the vertigo and the nausea you feel when you realize that they're like moral objectivism isn't a thing, and you have to like create like the structures of your own, like you have to basically imbue your own existence with meaning. But that just led to despair, and I like not that I'm just not strong enough as a person to honestly like if like talk about like red pill blue pill, like if I think I would take the blue pill honestly if the truth was that there was like moral objectivism wasn't a thing in our universe, because I don't know if I'd even want to exist, which sounds to a lot of people as like intellectually cowardly, and like maybe it is, but like I don't know if I'd want to exist in a world where there is no absolute truth, or like there was no creator, and someone would have to just explain to me like why. Maybe that world would be worth living in, and in some ways it takes a lot of intellectual bravery to live in that kind of world.
I don't want to disparage people I don't want to disrespect people who deny truth, because I disagree. I don't think that they're dumb. I think that they're wrong. But yeah, like it certainly does take a lot of bravery to deal with like the thought of like, what if this thing that would upend my entire life was the case?
Yeah.
And like like not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. And you can't live there either. You almost have to consider it and then like pull back, and like because you can't always live in that unknown between two worldviews.
Yeah. No, like it. Which I think like that's what faith is about. Like I think a big part of my faith journey was coming to the conclusion that the facts don't conclude you. Because I mean, like there are some things like on the proposition of like, is this tablecloth yellow? Like like the facts are pretty conclusive on that. I can't really, like, short of denying my sensory inputs, which is, I think Descartes explored that pretty exhaustively. But short of denying my sensory inputs, I can't like really come to a different conclusion about this guy right here. But God isn't quite like that, in my opinion. Like there are some interesting arguments against God, like the problem of evil. There's some really interesting arguments for God, and like I don't think that either argument takes you all the way. So from a reason perspective, you're left in between, and that's the space for faith, where like God asks us like, you are not going to be led by your reason all the way here. But like choose me, and I guess the reason why you choose is super important as well. Like and what I found to be the reason to choose God was this belief in love. Bringing it back to Interstellar, but like,
love TARS.
It's love is this sense that that God loves me, and like I heard a speaker say this, like he just given a talk about like apologetics, like arguments for God, and then he said, but the truth is that I don't really believe in God for any of these reasons that I've just given you. I believe in God because I know Him, and like if you were to ask me to prove that my mother exists, I would say I could give you some answers, but like and you can maybe fire back some really good questions, like, like, oh, actually, what about this and this and this? But you really wouldn't ever make me believe that my mother wasn't real, because I know my mom. And he described his faith in God like that. Like, I know God. And so, yeah, I've striven in my faith to kind of have that be the grounding, like, not because I didn't explore the intellectual stuff first, like a lot of my childhood, I feel like I spent online, like looking up arguments against Christianity and then looking up how to refute them, and then like trying to do this back and forth.
What sites were those on?
Various ones. I mean, like a lot of chat rooms.
Okay.
Quora. Reddit. Like,
yeah.
I remember very distinctly finding this. I think it was on Quora. This post by a missionary who had left the faith. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? Like, how can you go into the mission field and then like think that God isn't real after that? Like to have experiences of God where I can say like, like no matter what the argument is for or against, I have to like I want to have some experience that like I have to incorporate in. And that's been very important because like it's changed how I relate to God. Where like that's actually why I love liturgy. And I used to just read scripture in my head, but like reading it out loud, praying out loud, being very embodied, like it makes the spiritual experience, which I think is very important. And it isn't that like it's a proof for God that doesn't refute science. It's just in a different like. I mean, and I also find the classic religion versus science thing to be pretty comical because that's never been how I've learned science. Or like, I've never like I'm taking pretty technical classes at Carnegie Mellon University, and like there's no like anyway that means checkmate Christian.
And maybe it's like a false dichotomy peddled by people like Ken Ham or God's Not Dead or something like that.
Well, I mean, I would point at them, but I feel like they're like it's at least as prevalent on the other side of the debate as well. Like there are plenty of people who are secular who are also peddling this dichotomy.
That's true. Okay, AI 2027. You listened to the podcast, so did I.
Yeah,
I read it. Do you think artificial general intelligence and superintelligence is going to play out like that, where like we get AGI by 2028 or 2027?
No.
Why not?
No, I think
which of their premises didn't you agree with? Like, is it the data? Is it the infrastructure build out? Is it like we're not going to allow that as like a country, or are we going to hit some other wall that maybe we're not anticipating?
Well, I mean, like Dwarkesh was pretty bearish on their hypothesis.
Yeah,
he was actually less bearish than I thought he would be because he mainly disagreed about he said. He disagreed by like 10 years. He's like, oh yeah, like probably like the guest is like, we all agree this will happen by like 2040, right? We're just saying it'll be a few years before that.
Yeah.
And we're just like, oh yeah, of course. I was like,
2040. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, they were arguing over like, a couple years.
Yeah. But no, like something else that they said, like when they were trying to justify it to the questions is like, like here's like there's a current rate of AI expansion, right? And we're just speculating that rate stays constant. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a wild speculation.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, I think diminishing marginal returns is like something that we see everywhere else.
So yes, diminishing marginal returns, but it is like a log scale. So like it is linear on like a log scale. So like it's not. So like I think that accounts for diminishing marginal returns.
Well, I mean. Like the rate of improvement accounts for the log scale, though.
Yeah,
I mean, like, So I think I'm not talking about diminishing marginal returns with regard to compute power or any of the inputs, because like all of the inputs are logged to get the output. But the output is what they're saying is like there's going to be some rate of improvement theoretically on this final product of AGI capabilities, and our speculation is just that this is a constant, and I think constant improvement is, I mean, really, really challenging for me to justify. Like, for one, I mean, just using synthetic data to train models, right? Like that's a huge problem, and like there isn't a lot of like pure data left, like because they use so much of it to train the other models. And I mean, yeah, maybe they do solve synthetic data and like making that a viable option for training.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any progress on that.
I mean, from what I understand, though, like the latest reasoning models are trained on like synthetic data produced from like the reasoning model before that. So like O3 is trained on synthetic data from like O1, So like,
and there's marked improvements even with the data being synthetic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sure there are problems, and like but I know that the major frontier labs are using synthetic data to train their models.
Yeah, it just seems like it seems like kind of like the principle of why you can't have a perpetual motion machine. Like it seems like AI shouldn't be able to bootstrap upon itself indefinitely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To like the levels of superintelligence that they're speculating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like kind of like DeepSeek, right? Like from what I understand, DeepSeek was able to get to its level as cheaply as it was because it was using a pre-existing model. Like it was using ChatGPT to kind of like train itself.
Sure. Yeah. Or it was taking the outputs and like using that like its chain of thought reasoning to basically train, like to basically okay, like hey, this is like what state of the art looks like. Let's just basically copy what it says and train our models on their chain of thought reasoning. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that illustrates that like once you have the model here, it's really easy to get a model from the ground up to that level fast. And kind of taking that principle for humans, like it's very possible to get the model like from the ground up to human level, but then like it's just getting the model past that level that seems a little bit just like not intuitive to me. That like that's gonna happen that fast
because like superhuman data doesn't exist. Like how are we gonna get to superhuman level, right? Like you can only model and like I've heard a couple hey, maybe we're going to just give it like the hardest problem that we have as a society, and then like let it solve that, and then now it's this smart, and then we're gonna give that the hardest problem it can't solve. And so like I don't know. I don't know if there's like a fixed barrier, like a hard ceiling at human intelligence levels, because there are problems like even as a society that like we haven't solved, and then like someone comes along and solves it. So I don't know. Like I don't think like while it makes sense maybe on like a baseline level, like oh yeah, you can't be smarter than a human, and if there's nothing you can train on that's smarter than a human, but like we also have limits like in our own brains and things like that. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like okay, but. The Euros, you think, hey, we're gonna basically, even with all these factors coming together and based on trends like that we've seen over the last 10 years or so, like we're not going to reach. Well, there's the point of like recursive self-improvement, right? When it becomes like an automated AI researcher, at that point, like things will really take off, right? Because it can start like improving itself. So do you think we're not going to reach that point? I
mean, like that assumes that like there's space for it to improve. Like I think. Like a lot of AI, because of where we're at with mechanistic interpretability, is a black box, and so that means that you can't speculate that there's a lot of improvement to be done because we don't understand it fully. But I think there's also a very real possibility that like because it's very black box, we are towards the limits of what it can do. Like it isn't something like there are for a lot of mathematical techniques there are proofs about like the levels of error that you incur with it, like it's very well understood what the limits of these things are. The limits of this aren't understood, which means it is a fair speculation that it's limitless or like far above what it is right now. It's also a very fair speculation that we're very close to the limits of what this can do, And so like even if you could recursively improve, you'd be getting like very, very marginal improvements each time that you were to go through that recursive process.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, the amount of low hanging fruit, because right, like you can either improve compute, you can improve data, or you can improve like algorithmic efficiency. And so like from what I've heard, like common knowledge is like, okay, like algorithmic efficiency is probably we're going to get the most bang for our buck still, because we're scaling compute and we've pretty much hit like not necessarily a data wall, but like we've hit like a pre-training data wall essentially, and now it's like post-training reinforcement learning that like the new scaling is going to be, and then after that like it's probably going to be algorithmic efficiencies or like new changes in paradigm and like the model architecture progress that's going to get us to new levels. But kind of what you're saying, like like the amount of pre-training data out there is pretty much exhausted. But okay, do you think we're going to reach artificial general intelligence where it's as good as a human, as good or better than a human, pretty much any human task? Like it could replace like a remote worker such as yourself.
What? Yeah, it's a really good question. Like it seems to me like a lot of hype. Maybe I'm just not using it for the right things, but it seems like a pretty narrow use case. And yeah, I haven't seen anything from the models yet where I'm like, oh yeah, like this is gonna be big. You know, like this has overcome a hurdle that is, yeah. I mean, because it's just so far from thought, I guess. You know, like that case where they tried to make a company out of agents, right?
Yeah.
And they lied to each other and like made up stuff. Like it is super impressive that they could communicate at all, you know, and like do anything. So like that is kind of scary, and like that seems to be like the kind of thing. I just don't know that like there's a very real way to fit like that kind of stochasticness and making stuff up kind of thing. Like that seems to be like kind of baked in, you know, like to not have that, you'd need it to act a lot more like a traditional computer, which doesn't have this thinking part to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, my totally uneducated, well, not totally uneducated, my significantly undereducated opinion is no. And if so, like it will be in the distant future. With a different, like a technology that is similar to this one, but different in some pretty key ways.
Okay, interesting. Well, I'm AGI pilled. I think 2028 or 2029 is my median for when we get artificial general intelligence. So
Wow.
we'll see who's right.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Want to put some money on that?
absolutely.
Like your entire year's salary?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
neither do I. So.
Yeah. yeah. I think there's a lot of uncertainty there.
Wait. How about like a cool $100?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool $100 on
100%.
AGI by what's like? Give us a day.
July 1st, 2028.
And what defines AGI?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because yeah, I mean, if we're gonna bet on this, then we gotta like have some pretty
Yeah, we
clear parameters.
have some pretty good resolution criteria.
How about I define AGI on July 1st? Super
Intelligence
policy
podcast.
out. That was bad.